Have you ever wondered what it really looks like on the surface of Venus? Not just some artist's impression or computer model, but real photos, taken by a machine that actually landed there? For decades, Venus was like a mystery planet. It's the brightest object in our night sky after the moon, but no one knew what was under those thick, yellow clouds. Scientists had ideas. Maybe a jungle world. Maybe oceans. Or maybe something completely different. But no one had proof. No one had seen it with their own eyes. That all changed when the Soviets did something crazy. They sent spacecraft to Venus. Not just orbiters, but actual landers. They built machines strong enough to survive temperatures that could melt lead. They designed them to handle pressures that could crush a submarine. And against all odds, they did it. They sent back the first real photos from the surface of Venus. What those cameras captured was not what anyone expected. It's strange. It's lonely. And it's a place so hostile, it makes you feel very small. In this video, we'll explore the story behind those photos. We'll uncover the struggle to reach Venus. We'll show you what the Soviet cameras actually saw. And by the end, you'll understand why no one has done it again since. Stick around till the end, because when you finally see these real images, they might just change the way you see Earth and your place in the universe. Venus is not just another. It's a true nightmare world. Imagine standing somewhere where the air is so thick and heavy, it would crush you flat in seconds. The pressure on Venus is more than 90 times higher than Earth's. That's like being 3,000 feet underwater. Even the strongest submarines on Earth would struggle to survive that. And then there's the heat. The surface temperature on Venus reaches over 470 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead. It's even hotter than Mercury, the planet closest to the Sun. But the horror doesn't stop there. The clouds above are made mostly of carbon dioxide, with thick layers of sulfuric acid. Yes, acid, floating in the air. The sky is filled with toxic gases. There's almost no oxygen. The little sunlight that reaches the surface gets trapped, bouncing around and making the planet even hotter. This is called the greenhouse effect, and Venus has it at the extreme. Winds in the upper atmosphere blow at hundreds of kilometers per hour. But near the surface, everything is eerily still. No cool breeze. No shifting sands. Just a heavy, silent pressure pushing down, waiting to crush anything that arrives. For many years, scientists could only guess what the surface looked like. Some imagined thick clouds with swampy ground below. Others thought of dry deserts or endless volcanic plains. But no one knew for sure. Why? Because every probe or spacecraft sent to Venus failed. They either burned up, got crushed, or lost contact before reaching the surface. It seemed like no machine built by humans could survive there long enough to send back data, let alone take a picture. But that didn't stop one nation from trying again and again, pushing the limits of technology and human courage. The Soviet Union. They were determined to beat the odds, and become the first to show the world what Venus really looked like. It was the height of the space race. The 1960s and 70s were full of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. While NASA focused on the moon, the Soviets set their sights on something far more dangerous. Venus. The Soviet Space Agency launched a series of missions called the Venera program. The word Venera means Venus in Russian. Each mission had one goal: reach Venus and survive long enough to send back information. But it wasn't easy. The first few Venera missions failed. Some probes missed the planet. Others burned up in the atmosphere. A few got crushed before even reaching the ground. Yet with each failure, the engineers learned more. They improved the designs. They built stronger pressure vessels. They added thick insulation to handle the extreme heat. They tested the landers in high-pressure chambers and ovens, trying to simulate Venus-like conditions here on Earth. The Soviets were not just building machines, they were building survivors. By the early 1970s, they were ready for something big. Venera 7 became the first spacecraft to land on Venus and transmit data. But it didn't carry a camera. The signal was weak, and it lasted only 23 minutes. Still, it proved one thing: landing on Venus was possible. The Soviets didn't stop there. They built better landers for the next missions. Stronger, smarter, and equipped with cameras. They wanted images. Real ones. Not guesses. Not computer models. But true photographs from the surface of Earth's deadly twin. Their next targets? Venera 9, Venera 10, and later, Venera 13 and 14. These missions were not just risky, they were almost impossible. Every second on the surface would be a fight against crushing pressure, burning heat, and electronic failure. But the Soviets were determined. They were ready to risk millions of dollars and years of research for just a few minutes of data and a handful of images that no human had ever seen before. In 1975, the Soviet Union launched Venera 9 and Venera 10. These were the first landers equipped with cameras, specially designed to survive Venus's brutal conditions. When Venera 9 entered Venus's atmosphere, the pressure outside was already intense. As the lander descended, its thick armor plates and heat shields fought to keep the electronics alive. The temperature kept rising, the pressure kept building, but against all odds, the lander made it to the surface. Venera 9 became the first spacecraft to send back a picture from the surface of another planet. Just think about that for a second. Before this, no one had ever seen the ground of Venus, not with real eyes, not through any lens. But the victory didn't last long. The lander survived for just 53 minutes before the heat and pressure finally overwhelmed it. The next lander, Venera 10, landed only a few days later. It too sent back images. But the real breakthrough came with Venera 13 and 14 in 1982. These landers carried color-capable cameras, and they were built even tougher. Venera 13, for example, lasted 127 minutes, over 2 hours. That's an eternity on Venus. Imagine the scene at Mission Control. Scientists and engineers sitting nervously by their monitors, waiting for the data to come in. Would the lander survive long enough to send pictures? Would the camera lens melt? Would the signal break? And then, the images arrived. Grainy at first, black and white, then, after careful processing, colorized to reflect the true lighting and color tones on Venus. What the cameras captured was both eerie and unforgettable. The surface was flat and rocky. Large, flat stones lay scattered across a dry, dusty plain. The sky above wasn't blue, it was a strange, deep yellow, colored by thick carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid clouds filtering the sunlight. There were no trees. No animals. No signs of life. Just cracked ground, jagged rocks, and endless silence. These were the first, and still the only, real images humans have from the surface of Venus. The photos were simple, but powerful. They showed a world that looked more like a science fiction nightmare than a neighboring planet. The ground appeared rough and broken, like dried mud that had cracked under extreme heat. Rocks of different shapes and sizes lay scattered in every direction. Some looked sharp, others rounded, all covered in a fine layer of dust. The colors were strange too. Not the bright reds or oranges you might expect from Mars. Instead, everything had a dull, yellowish-brown tone. This was because the thick atmosphere filtered the sunlight, making the entire landscape look like it was trapped under an endless yellow fog. In some photos, the edges of the lander itself are visible, metal parts designed to resist the crushing air and melting temperatures. Even those parts look beaten and weathered by Venus's violent environment, even though they had been there only minutes. The images weren't high resolution by today's standards, but they were more than enough to send a clear message: Venus is not a place for life. It's a world where no human could ever walk. No ship could last more than a couple of hours. And no camera could survive much longer than that. Each picture was a reminder of how far technology had come, and how small and fragile we really are compared to the forces of nature on other planets. Scientists studied every detail in those images. They looked at the size and shape of the rocks, the way light scattered through the thick air, and even how the lander's own equipment appeared under Venus's harsh glow. And for the first time in history, humanity had visual proof of what it's like on the surface of Venus, a world where even machines struggle to survive for just a few moments. After the Venera missions, something strange happened. No one else sent cameras to Venus's surface. Not NASA. Not Europe. Not even Russia again. For more than 40 years, images from Venera 9, 10, 13, and 14 remain the only real photos from Venus's ground. Why? The answer is simple and terrifying. Venus is just too dangerous. The extreme heat melts metal. The crushing pressure destroys electronics. The corrosive atmosphere eats away at anything exposed for too long. Even with today's advanced technology, landing on Venus and sending back images remains one of the toughest challenges in space exploration. Unlike Mars, where rovers can operate for years, Venus kills machines in less than 2 hours. Every second a probe survives, there is a battle against failure. Also, space agencies began focusing on other targets. Mars became the top priority. Then Saturn, Jupiter, and their moons captured attention. Missions to Venus became rare. And none of them included landers with cameras. NASA has plans for future missions like Veritas and Da Vinci Plus, but these are orbiters and atmospheric probes, not surface landers with cameras like the old Venera series. Some scientists say the technology isn't ready yet. Others say Venus doesn't offer enough return for the risk and cost. But there's another reason people stay curious. Some believe Venus still holds secrets buried under its toxic clouds and burning skies, secrets we may not be ready to face. And until new missions arrive, the blurry, yellow-tinted images taken by Soviet cameras in the 1970s and 80s remain our only real window into that deadly world. Standing here on Earth, it's hard to imagine just how different Venus really is. We breathe fresh air, walk under blue skies, and feel the warmth of the sun without fear. Our planet is full of life, from the smallest insects to the largest animals. But just one planet away, things are completely different. On Venus, the air would crush your body in seconds. The heat would melt your skin. The clouds above would rain acid, if the acid could even reach the ground through the thick, burning atmosphere. The images taken by the Soviet Venera probes serve as a cold reminder of how rare and special Earth really is. Those rocks, that cracked soil, that lifeless horizon, they show us what happens when a planet takes a different path. Billions of years ago, Venus may have been more like Earth. Some scientists think it had oceans, maybe even mild temperatures. But over time, Venus changed. It became a runaway greenhouse world, a place where no life can exist today. Looking at those photos, you can't help but feel small. Tiny. Just one fragile species on one small planet, floating in the middle of a vast and dangerous universe. It's humbling. It's scary. But it's also beautiful in its own way. Because even in a place as deadly as Venus, we managed to land. We managed to take photos. And for a few short moments, we reached out across millions of kilometers and touched another world. So next time you step outside, take a deep breath, look up at the sky, and remember, just next door, there's a planet waiting to crush and melt anything brave enough to visit. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps more people discover these amazing space mysteries. Also, if you love learning about strange planets, lost missions, and incredible space history, make sure to subscribe. We have more stories coming, like why NASA never sent landers with cameras to Venus, and what future missions might reveal about this deadly world. Leave a comment below, what do you think? Should we go back to Venus? Or is it better left alone? And if you want to dive deeper into the secrets of our solar system, Check out our next video, Why NASA Never Returned to Venus, the untold story of abandoned missions. Thanks for watching, and remember, space is vast, beautiful, and still full of mystery.